The air over Jerusalem feels different today. It is a heavy electric stillness that defies the constant hum of the modern city below. Looking down from a high vantage point, the juxtaposition is jarring. Iron Dome batteries, military engineering, sit silently on the outskirts, their sensors scanning the horizon for modern threats. Yet, just a few miles away, the golden dome of the Temple Mount glows under a relentless sun, resting upon stones that have witnessed the rise and fall of empires for millennia. It is here, in this intersection of steel and spirit, that the final world clock is ticking. Most people see only the headlines, the diplomatic disputes, the border skirmishes, and the volatile exchange rates, but there are those who see something far more profound. Among them is a man known only as the Watchman. He is a researcher who does not look at the world through the lens of a political analyst or a military strategist. Instead, he looks through the lens of antiquity. For years, he has sat in a small room cluttered with maps and ancient scrolls, identifying patterns that the mainstream media consistently ignores. While the world stares at breaking news, the Watchman watches the shadows. He notices the way the geopolitical winds are shifting in a direction that was predicted thousands of years ago. To him, the chaos is not random. It is a meticulously choreographed sequence. Right now, a silent shift is occurring. Global attention remains fixed on the noisy theater of Middle Eastern politics, debating ceasefire terms. However, beneath this surface-level noise, a deeper, spiritual trigger has been pulled. The secular world calls it a humanitarian crisis or a strategic pivot. But for the Watchman, these are merely masks for a cosmic convergence. It is as if a curtain is being drawn back, revealing an ancient script that has been waiting in the wings for 20 centuries. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. In the last 48 hours alone, the parallels between modern headlines and Ezekiel have become undeniable. When Ezekiel wrote about the gathering of nations and the shaking of the mountains, he was describing a reality that seemed impossible in an era of swords and chariots. Yet today, the specific movements of northern powers and the tightening of alliances across the desert sands match his verses with surgical precision. The Watchman feels the weight of this realization. In an era of deepfakes, AI-generated propaganda, and calculated disinformation, finding the truth has become a survival skill. He feels like a sentry on a crumbling wall, seeing the dust clouds of a coming storm while the city below continues to feast and trade, unaware that the clouds are not made of rain but of destiny. The geopolitical alignment is perhaps the most chilling sign. We are witnessing the formation of alliances that have no logical basis in modern economics, but make perfect sense in the context of the Gog and Magog prophecy. Nations that were once bitter enemies are now finding common ground in their opposition to the small land of Israel. The northern borders are tightening, and the rhetoric coming from distant capitals is echoing the very threats recorded by prophets who lived long before the invention of the printing press. It is an alignment of powers that the world has never seen in this exact configuration until this moment in history. But it isn't just the politics or the wars that are signaling the end of an age. The Watchman knows that physical signs must accompany the spiritual ones. For 2,000 years, certain events were deemed physically impossible, dismissed as metaphors because the land itself would not allow them. But this week, a discovery was made near the heart of the city, a physical event so rare and specific that it has not been seen since Roman times. This single occurrence changes everything forever, proving faith is fact. The physical event sending shockwaves through hidden corridors of power is the arrival of the red heifers. These 5 flawless creatures, brought from across the ocean under a shroud of secrecy, represent a physical bridge to a past many believed was forever severed. To the secular observer, they are merely livestock, but to the religious facilitators moving silently in the background, they are the essential keys to a cosmic lock. The Watchman observes these men, their faces etched with a grim, ecstatic determination. They are preparing for a purification ritual not performed since the destruction of the Second Temple. The air around the pens is thick with the scent of hay and the heavy, unspoken reality that their presence makes the construction of a third temple no longer a theological dream, but a logistical possibility. This impossible event has finally manifested, signaling that the countdown has transitioned from centuries to mere days. As news of the heifers filters through the narrow alleys of the old city, a palpable prophetic fever begins to take hold of the modern public. It is an intoxicating, terrifying blend of emotions. In the marketplaces, the usual haggling over spices and silks is interrupted by hushed conversations about the end of days. Some look toward the Temple Mount with a hope that borders on delirium, believing that the restoration of ancient rites will bring a divine peace. Others feel a creeping apocalyptic fear, sensing that the world they know is being dismantled to make room for something far more demanding. The watchman walks through these crowds, seeing the same wide-eyed intensity in the eyes of both the faithful and the fearful. It is a city on edge, vibrating with the frequency of a coming change that no one feels truly prepared to face. While human elements are in turmoil, nature itself appears to be groaning in anticipation of a grand transformation. Far to the north, the Euphrates River, once the mighty lifeblood of civilizations, is receding at an alarming rate. The watchman studies satellite imagery, revealing ancient cavernous structures emerging from the mud. Dark, hollow spaces that haven't seen the sun in millennia. It is as if the earth is peeling back its own skin to reveal the skeletons of a forgotten world. Simultaneously, in the desolate reaches of the Dead Sea, a different kind of miracle unfolds. In the very place where salt once choked all life, freshwater springs are bubbling up, and small fish dart through waters that were once synonymous with death. Nature is no longer following the rules of the old world, it is aligning itself with the visions of Ezekiel and John. This environmental upheaval creates a stark clash with the blinded world. Secular leaders, tethered to diplomatic protocols, scramble to explain these phenomena through the lens of climate science or regional instability. They are desperate to maintain a status quo that is rapidly dissolving. The watchman sees the futility in their efforts. While they debate carbon footprints and border security, the unstoppable momentum of ancient decrees surges forward. There is a fundamental disconnect between those who believe they can manage the future through policy and those who realize the future is already written. The conflict is no longer just between nations, but between two entirely different versions of reality. Amidst this spiritual escalation, a cold clinical shadow has fallen across the holy city, the technological link. The watchman notes how AI-driven surveillance and high-definition facial recognition cameras have blanketed every corner of Jerusalem. Every movement is tracked by an infrastructure, mirroring the dark prophetic warnings of an inescapable global control system. The tools originally promised to provide security are viewed by the watchman as the physical manifestation of the beast infrastructure mentioned in the Book of Revelation. It is a world where digital grids and biometric data dictate existence, adding a layer of cold modern dread to these ancient prophecies. Just as the watchman feels the suffocating weight of this surveillance, a breakthrough occurs at an archaeological site near the foundations of the Western Wall. A team has uncovered a stone seal that had been hidden for centuries. It bears an inscription linking a recent astronomical alignment directly to the immediate timeline of a major prophetic event. This find is no mere relic of a dead past. It is a tactical map for the next 72 hours, revealing that the gears of destiny are turning with a speed that even the watchman finds paralyzing. The ancient seal, cold and heavy in the hands of those who discovered it, serves as the final catalyst, drawing all these disparate threads into a single, undeniable focus point. For the watchman, the convergence is no longer a matter of academic debate. It is a physical weight pressing against his chest. The political alliances forming on the horizon, the environmental groaning of the receding Euphrates, and the quiet presence of the red heifers in their secret enclosures are no longer separate events. They are the gears of a single, massive machine that has suddenly groaned into life. The world has crossed a threshold, moving irrevocably from the long age of preparation into the sharp reality of execution. The final prophecies are no longer hovering in the distance of a vague tomorrow. They are unfolding in the very air we breathe, manifesting in the headlines and the tremors of the earth. This realization shifts the burden from the watchman to the world at large, though most remain blissfully unaware. The narrative of history is no longer something to be read in a dusty book or viewed on a screen from the safety of distance. It is a reality that every living soul is currently inhabiting. The watchman looks out over the city of Jerusalem, seeing the digital glow of surveillance towers reflecting off the ancient limestone, and he understands that the viewer is not just an observer, they are a participant. This is the moment where the abstract becomes personal. The events in Israel are a mirror held up to the human soul, asking a question that transcends politics. If the ancient scripts are true, then the life we have built on shifting sands is about to be tested by the weight of the eternal. It is an invitation to see the world not as it is marketed to us, but as it truly is. Yet the tragedy remains that almost nobody realizes the magnitude of what is occurring. The blinded world, led by voices of systemic apathy and the hum of disinformation, continues to treat these signs as anomalies. They see the drying river as a climate statistic and the political tension as a mere diplomatic hurdle. They are trapped in a loop of the mundane, unable to perceive the spiritual electricity that is currently charging the atmosphere. This blindness is not a lack of sight, but a refusal to look. The watchman feels a profound sorrow for those who are standing on the tracks as the locomotive of destiny approaches, yet remain occupied with the trivialities of the status. To find clarity in this hour requires a radical shedding of the illusions offered by the modern world and a willingness to confront the uncomfortable brilliance of the truth. As the transition from sign to fulfillment intensifies, the watchman feels a profound internal shift. The initial terror, the crushing weight of the coming storm that once kept him awake in the hollow hours of the night, begins to transform. The fear is being replaced by a state of absolute readiness and a strange, crystalline peace. It is the peace of a man who knows the truth and has finally decided to stand his ground. The spiritual urgency of the moment does not call for panic, but for a deep internal alignment. The prophetic fever that grips the streets of Jerusalem is a chaotic energy, but for the one who watches with open eyes, that energy can be channeled into a resolute strength. The storm is coming, but for the first time, the watchman knows exactly where to stand to remain unshaken as the foundations of the world begin to tremble. The stakes have reached their absolute zenith. We are no longer talking about the survival of a political system or a border. We are talking about eternal significance. Every sign, every headline, and every supernatural shift in Israel is a final call to action, a summons to wake up before the door is shut. The time for curiosity has passed, the time for decision has arrived. The watchman's eyes are fixed on the horizon, where the sun sets over a world that will never be the same. He sees the metaphor of a clock, its hands sweeping toward the midnight hour, each tick echoing like a hammer on a divine anvil. The final second is not a threat, but a conclusion to a story that began at the dawn of time. As the last vibration of the clock's strike begins to hum, the only question that remains is the one that echoes in the silence of every human heart. Are you ready for what comes next?